The Valorian Empire controlled most of the galaxy. For 8,000 years, they had conquered planet after planet, species after species. Their military was the strongest force anyone had ever seen. When the Valorians arrived at a new world, they gave one simple message: surrender or die. No one ever chose to fight. Fighting the Empire was suicide. Emperor Zarvik sat on his throne, reviewing reports from the outer territories. He was bored. Conquest had become routine. Every species begged for mercy. Every world fell within days. His generals competed to see who could subjugate planets the fastest. War had become a game with no challenge. Then came the report about Earth. Admiral Krelto stood before the Emperor, presenting the findings from their scout ships. The planet was populated by humans, a species that had barely left their own solar system. Their technology was primitive. They used chemical rockets. Their weapons fired metal projectiles using explosive powder. They had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light communication. The War Council laughed. Some suggested sending a single cruiser instead of a full fleet. One general joked that they should let the humans surrender before they even arrived, just to save fuel. Emperor Zarvik smiled. This would be easy. Admiral Kreltos assembled the 47th Subjugation Fleet anyway. 12 massive dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and 200 support vessels. It was far more than necessary, but the admiral believed in overwhelming force. Better to crush resistance before it could even begin. The fleet jumped through hyperspace. Traveling across the galaxy in moments, they emerged in orbit around Earth. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. White clouds swirled in patterns. Cities glowed on the night side, millions of lights marking where humans lived. Kreltos almost felt bad for what was about to happen. Almost, he sent the standard ultimatum. Every communication channel on Earth received the same message. This is the Valorian Empire. You have one planetary rotation to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will destroy your military forces and occupy your world. Resistance is futile. Submit now, and your species will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. Now, the Valorians waited. They expected panic. They expected desperate pleas for mercy. They expected politicians arguing with each other about whether to fight or surrender. Instead, they received a single response. It came from someone called the Secretary General of the United Earth Coalition. The message was short, only 6 words. The Admiral had to read it 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing. We warned you, Ron. The bridge crew fell silent. Then someone laughed. Then everyone was laughing. The humans thought they could threaten the Empire. These primitives who barely had space travel. It was the most absurd thing any of them had ever heard. Admiral Kreltos smiled. Begin bombardment of their military installations. Let us teach these humans the cost of arrogance. The fleet's weapons powered up. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains locked onto targets. The first volley was fired. Hundreds of energy beams struck Earth's surface, hitting military bases, missile silos, naval yards, and command centers. Explosions bloomed across the planet like flowers, but something was wrong. The targeting officer reported that all installations were empty, evacuated. Not a single life sign detected. The humans had known where the Valorians would strike. They had abandoned every obvious target hours before the fleet arrived. Kreltos frowned. Lucky guess, he thought. The humans probably evacuated when they saw the fleet arrive. It changed nothing. Then the sensors began screaming warnings. Thousands of new contacts appeared on the tactical display. They came from everywhere. From behind Earth's moon. From the asteroid belt. From the outer planets. Ships. Thousands of human ships. All broadcasting active sensors. All accelerating toward the Valorian fleet. It was impossible. The scouts had reported minimal human space presence. A few orbital stations. Some asteroid mining operations. Nothing that could threaten a Valorian cruiser, let alone a full subjugation fleet. The Admiral stared at the display. The human vessels were small compared to Valorian ships. Most were barely the size of a shuttle. But there were so many of them. over 3,000 signatures and more, appearing every second as they emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. Where did they all come from? Someone whispered the answer was simple and terrifying. The humans had been preparing. They had been watching Valorian scout ships for months, maybe years. They had built their fleet in secret, hiding ships in asteroid fields and behind planets, keeping them powered down and invisible to sensors. They had let the Valorians think they were primitive. They had set a trap, and the Valorian Empire had walked right into it. The human fleet did not slow down. They did not broadcast demands or warnings. They simply accelerated harder, pushing velocities that should have killed any organic crew. The distance between the two fleets closed rapidly. Admiral Kreltos gave orders to prepare for combat. His crew was well-trained. They had fought dozens of battles. But as he watched the tactical display, he felt something he had not felt in decades of military service. Uncertainty. The human ships were moving wrong. They were not maintaining formation. They were not protecting their larger vessels. They were not doing anything a proper military fleet should do. Instead, they swarmed like insects, each ship on its own trajectory, each moving independently. It was chaos. It was unprofessional. It was exactly what made them dangerous. The Valorian fleet fired first. Plasma lances reached out across the void, striking human vessels. Ships exploded. Dozens were destroyed in the first volley. The admiral allowed himself a moment of relief. The humans were weak after all. Their small ships could not withstand Valorian firepower. But the human fleet did not retreat. They did not even slow down. For every ship destroyed, 3 more pressed forward. They were not trying to win a traditional battle. They were not trying to disable the Valorian fleet. They were trying to kill every single Valorian in the system, no matter how many humans died in the process. Admiral Kreltos realized his mistake too late. He had brought a fleet designed to conquer. The humans had brought a fleet designed to exterminate. There was a difference. A terrible, crucial difference. The human ships entered close range, and the real battle began. The Valorian weapons fired continuously. Plasma bolts turned space into a light show of destruction. Human ships exploded by the dozens. Metal fragments and frozen atmosphere created clouds of debris that reflected the flashes of weapons fire. By all military doctrine, the battle should have been over in minutes, but the humans kept coming. Admiral Kreltos watched his tactical display with growing horror. The human vessels were small and primitive, but they were also fast and disposable. They did not fight like any military he had encountered. They fought like a swarm of predators, each ship acting independently but somehow coordinating perfectly. Then he saw what the human ships were really doing. They were not trying to outfight the Valorian fleet. They were trying to get close. And some of them were succeeding. A human vessel, badly damaged and venting atmosphere, accelerated directly toward a Valorian cruiser. The cruiser's defensive weapons tore into it, ripping away armor and structure. But the human ship did not stop. It did not even try to evade. It simply pointed itself at the cruiser and kept accelerating. The impact was devastating. The human ship was moving at nearly 20% of light speed. When it hit the cruiser's shields, the energy discharge lit up the entire battlefield. The shields collapsed. The human ship, now just a ball of superheated plasma, punched through the cruiser's hull. The Valorian vessel split in two, both halves tumbling away in different directions. It was suicide. It was insane. It was happening everywhere. Admiral Kreltos ordered his ships to maintain distance, to use long-range weapons only. But the humans had prepared for that too. Some of their vessels were faster than Valorian ships. They closed the distance despite everything the Admiral tried. Then the humans unveiled their true weapons. Kreltos had read the scout reports. Humans used kinetic weapons, primitive guns that threw metal projectiles. The scouts had laughed about it. Everyone knew energy weapons were superior. Kinetic weapons were slow, inaccurate, easy to defend against. But the scouts had never seen a human mass driver. The weapons were simple in concept. Electromagnetic rails accelerated metal projectiles to incredible speeds. But instead of small bullets, the humans were firing telephone pole-sized slugs of tungsten, and they were firing them at a significant fraction of light speed. Nothing could stop that much momentum. Not shields. Not armor. Not prayers to any god in the galaxy. A human battleship, 3 times larger than any other vessel in their fleet, opened fire. 6 mass drivers spoke simultaneously. 6 tungsten projectiles crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. A Valorian dreadnought. 3 kilometers of the Empire's finest military engineering took 2 hits. The projectiles did not explode. They did not need to. The kinetic energy alone was enough. The dreadnought simply ceased to exist in the middle. The front section and rear section separated, both pieces spinning away as everything inside was exposed to vacuum. 15,000 Valorian soldiers died in an instant. Admiral Kreltos felt his confidence crack. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter, and his fleet was losing. He tried to organize a retreat, but the humans had planned for that too. They had seeded the gravity wells with mines. Automated weapons platforms hidden throughout the system activated. Small hunter-killer drones swarmed from the asteroid belt, attaching themselves to Valorian hulls and detonating the 47th Subjugation Fleet. Pride of the Empire was being destroyed. Kreltos watched his ships die one by one. Cruisers were torn apart by kinetic strikes. Dreadnoughts were overwhelmed by swarms of small human vessels. Support ships simply disappeared, struck by weapons the Valorians never saw coming. In 6 hours, 3/4 of his fleet was gone. The admiral stood on his bridge, staring at the carnage on the displays. His crew was silent. Some were crying. Others just stared in shock. No one spoke. Kreltos made a decision. He sent a message to the Empire, a warning for anyone who might face these humans in the future. His hands shook as he recorded. "This is Admiral Kreltos of the 47th Fleet. We have engaged the humans and suffered catastrophic losses. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not seek honor. They do not seek to win battles. They seek only to kill. Send no more fleets. Quarantine this system. They are not what we thought. They are not primitives. They are." An explosion rocked the flagship. Human boarding teams had breached the hull. The admiral could hear weapons fire in the corridors, screaming. His guards fought desperately, but the humans were already inside. The last thing Admiral Kreltos saw was a human soldier entering his bridge. The soldier was covered in Valorian blood. His armor was scarred and damaged. His weapon was still smoking from recent use. He looked at the admiral with cold, calculating eyes. The soldier spoke in perfect Valorian. "You should have run." Then everything went dark. Earth's orbit was now a graveyard. Thousands of pieces of debris floated where the 47th Subjugation Fleet had been. Valorian bodies drifted among the wreckage, frozen and lifeless. A few escape pods broadcast distress signals, but no one was coming to save them. The human fleet regrouped. Damaged vessels returned to shipyards for repairs. Crews celebrated their victory, but their commanders remained serious. They knew this was just the beginning. On Earth, the Secretary General addressed the planet. Her message was broadcast to every human in the solar system. "Today we proved that humanity will not submit. We proved that our home is not for sale or conquest, but we also showed the Empire that we are dangerous. They will come back. Next time with more ships, more weapons, more determination. So we must prepare. We must build. We must make sure that when they return, we are ready." Construction began immediately. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Every factory produced weapons. Every resource in the solar system was directed toward one goal: survival, because everyone knew the Empire would return. And next time, they would not underestimate humanity. The message had been sent across the galaxy. The Valorian Empire had been bloodied. Their invincible fleet had been destroyed. And somewhere in the Imperial capital, someone was making a decision about how to respond. The humans waited. They built. They prepared. And they knew that the real war was about to begin. The news of the 47th Fleet's destruction reached the Valorian capital within days. At first, The Emperor refused to believe it. He had the messenger executed for spreading lies. Then more reports came. Escape pod survivors told the same story. Reconnaissance drones showed the wreckage. An entire subjugation fleet gone. Annihilated by Previs. Emperor Zarvik summoned his war council. The meeting lasted 3 days. Some generals demanded immediate retaliation with overwhelming force. Others suggested caution, perhaps even negotiation. One admiral suggested the unthinkable, leaving the humans alone, declaring their system forbidden territory. The Emperor listened to all of them. Then he made his decision. The Valorian Empire does not retreat. We do not negotiate with lesser species. And we certainly do not show weakness. If we allow these humans to defy us, every conquered species will think they can do the same. Rebellions will spread. The Empire will fracture. No, we will crush these humans so thoroughly that their name becomes a warning to the galaxy. He authorized the deployment of the Third Grand Armada. 300 capital ships. 2,000 support vessels. It was the largest military mobilization since the ancient wars that had unified the Empire millennia ago. The fleet would take months to assemble. But when it arrived at Earth, there would be no doubt about the outcome. But the Emperor had underestimated humanity once again. During the first battle, human hackers had infiltrated Valorian communication networks. They had copied everything. Fleet movements, tactical doctrines, weapon specifications, and most importantly, the locations of every major Valorian military installation in the galaxy. While the Empire assembled its armada, humanity was learning. Human engineers studied captured Valorian technology. Scientists analyzed their weapons. Tacticians memorized their battle strategies. And intelligence operatives mapped the entire Valorian Empire from the inside. The Third Grand Armada gathered at Koros 9, a massive military station on the edge of Valorian space. It took 3 months for all the ships to arrive. Marshal Tavern, the fleet commander, inspected his forces with pride. This fleet could conquer entire star sectors. It would crush the humans easily. Then 3 human ships appeared at the edge of the system. Just 3. Small vessels, barely armed, certainly no threat to the assembled armada. The Marshal wondered if the humans had come to surrender. That would be wise. Perhaps they had realized resistance was futile. The human ships began broadcasting on all frequencies. What they showed made every Valorian in the system stop and watch. It was footage from the first battle. High-definition recordings from multiple angles. Valorian ships being torn apart. Crews screaming as hulls were breached. Admiral Krelto's final moments. The footage was edited for maximum impact, showing every death in graphic detail. The humans had weaponized propaganda. After 10 minutes of footage, the broadcast changed to text. Simple words that appeared in every Valorian language. Turn back. We will give you this one chance. Marshal Tavorn was furious. How dare these primitives threaten the Empire? How dare they mock Valorian deaths? He gave the order to destroy the human ships, but they jumped away before weapons could lock on. They had delivered their message and left. The Marshal called an emergency meeting. Some of his officers were shaken by the footage. They had heard about the 47th Fleet's destruction, but seeing it was different. Seeing their fellow Valorians die so horribly made it real. Marshal, perhaps we should reconsider, one captain said quietly. The humans are clearly more dangerous than we thought. Tavarn slammed his fist on the table. We are the Valorian Empire. We have conquered thousands of worlds. Are we supposed to be frightened by 3 small ships and a propaganda video? The Emperor has given us a mission. We will complete it. The fleet prepared to jump to Earth. 300 warships aligned in formation. Crews checked their weapons one final time. Marshal Tavron stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his superiority. The Empire would prevail. It always did. The human ships appeared one more time. They transmitted a final message. You were warned. Then they vanished. The Grand Armada jumped. Something went wrong immediately. Instead of emerging together in Earth's orbit, the fleet was scattered across the entire solar system. Some ships appeared near Mars, others found themselves beyond Jupiter. A few emerged dangerously close to the sun, their shields struggling against the radiation. The fleet was fragmented, confused, vulnerable. The humans had deployed gravity mines throughout the system, devices that disrupted hyperspace jumps, pulling ships out of FTL travel at random locations. The Valorian fleet's greatest strength, its ability to arrive as one overwhelming force, had been negated, and humanity was waiting. Marshal Tavron tried to take stock of his situation. His flagship had emerged near Mars, along with 30 other ships. The rest of the fleet was scattered. He ordered everyone to regroup at Earth, but before the ships could coordinate, human vessels appeared. This time the human fleet was different. It had doubled in size. But these were not all military vessels. Mixed among the warships were cargo haulers with railguns welded to their hulls, colony ships converted into missile platforms, passenger liners armed with improvised weapons. Even mining vessels carried nuclear warheads. Every human ship in the solar system that could mount a weapon had joined the defense. Civilian and military fighting, side by side. It was unprecedented. It was desperate. It was effective. The battle became chaos. Valorian ships tried to regroup, but human forces attacked from every direction. They used planets for gravitational slingshots. They hid behind moons and asteroids. They coordinated with a precision that seemed impossible for such a diverse fleet. The truth was more terrifying than the Valorians knew. Humanity had linked every ship into an AI network, a distributed intelligence that controlled thousands of vessels as one organism. Every human pilot gave up individual control, trusting the AI to coordinate their movements. It was the ultimate gamble, and it was working. Marshal Tavorin's flagship came under attack from multiple directions. Human ships dove from above and below, firing kinetic weapons and missiles. The flagship's shields held, but barely. The Marshal ordered a counterattack, but his weapons crews could not track the enemy. The humans moved too fast, changed direction too quickly. Then a cargo hauler, badly damaged and trailing atmosphere, accelerated directly at the flagship. Tavron recognized the tactic. He ordered point defense to destroy it, but the human ship had reinforced its bow with meters of solid metal. The defensive weapons could not penetrate in time. The impact breached the flagship's reactor containment. For a brief moment, Marshal Tavron understood what had happened. The humans had outmaneuvered him. They had scattered his fleet and attacked the pieces individually. They had turned the most powerful armada in Valorian history into scattered targets. Then the reactor exploded. The blast was visible from Earth. A new star burning briefly in the night sky. The Third Grand Armada died over 18 hours. Some ships fought bravely. Some tried to retreat. None escaped. The human AI coordinated the destruction of every vessel, prioritizing threats and overwhelming each ship in turn. When it was over, Emperor Zarvik watched the final reports in silence. 2 fleets destroyed. Thousands of ships gone. Hundreds of thousands of Valorian lives lost. And the humans remained defiant. For the first time in his reign, the Emperor felt something new. Not anger. Not determination. Fear. Pure, simple fear of what the humans might be capable of. He made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Emperor Zarvik stood alone in his throne room, staring at star maps that showed the extent of his empire. Thousands of systems, millions of worlds, trillions of subjects. All of it built on the principle that the Valorian military was unbeatable. That principle had just been shattered by one primitive species in one insignificant system. He could not let it stand. If humanity was allowed to defy the Empire, others would follow. The subjugated species would rebel. The Empire would collapse. Everything his ancestors had built would crumble. No, he would end this, no matter the cost. The Emperor authorized weapons that had been banned by Galactic Convention for millennia. Planet crackers that could shatter worlds. Biogenic weapons that could sterilize entire continents. Stellar destabilizers that could make a sun go nova. If humanity would not submit, humanity would be exterminated. Every human world, every colony, every station. Nothing would remain. He would lead the assault personally. The first Imperial Armada, the fleet reserved for existential threats to the Empire, was mobilized. 500 ships of the line, each equipped with weapons of mass destruction. The Emperor's own flagship, the Inevitable, would command them. The fleet assembled quickly. These were not subjugation forces. These were extermination forces. Every ship carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Together, they could sterilize an entire star sector. But first, they would send a message. They would strike at humanity's distant colonies, showing Earth what awaited them. The Emperor chose Novatara, humanity's most distant settlement. As the first target, the Imperial Armada jumped to Novatara, expecting a battle. Instead, they found an empty system. The colony was evacuated. Cities stood silent. Orbital platforms drifted without power. Not a single human remained. On every communication channel, a message buoy broadcast the same information. Coordinates to Earth. And a simple statement: if you want humanity, come to Sol. Come to Earth. We will be waiting. It was obviously a trap. The Emperor knew it was a trap, but he could not refuse the challenge. To hunt humanity across the galaxy while they fled from colony to colony would take years. The Empire did not have years. Every day that passed with humanity unpunished was another day of potential rebellion elsewhere. The Emperor gave the order. The first Imperial Armada jumped to Earth's solar system. They emerged into hell. The humans had spent every moment since the last battle preparing. The entire asteroid belt had been weaponized. Thousands of rocks were now missile platforms, railgun batteries, and nuclear mines. Jupiter's moons had been converted into fortress stations, each one bristling with weapons. Mars hosted railgun batteries so large they could hit a target in Earth orbit with pinpoint accuracy and around Earth itself. Humanity had built a grid of orbital defense platforms, thousands of them, each one linked to the AI network, creating an impenetrable sphere of overlapping fire zones. Nothing could reach Earth's surface without passing through that gauntlet. But the most horrifying surprise was what humanity had done to their own son, Emperor. Zarvik stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The star was wrong. Something had been done to it. Billions of nanoscale devices drifted in the star's outer layers, visible to normal sensors but detectable by their energy signatures. The humans had seeded their son with technology. A transmission came from Earth. It was audio only. A human voice speaking calm and clear. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Emperor, you have brought planet crackers to our home. Weapons designed to destroy worlds. So we have prepared something in return. Our son is now a weapon. At my command, we can trigger a coronal mass ejection aimed directly at your fleet. We have calculated the trajectory. Your ships will be caught in a wave of plasma moving at millions of kilometers per hour. Your shields will fail. Your crews will die." The Emperor started to respond, but Admiral Chen continued. "I know what you are thinking. You are thinking we are bluffing, that we would never destroy our own world to kill you. But you are wrong. We have already evacuated Earth's surface. Everyone is in underground bunkers or off-planet shelters. We can survive what comes next. The question is, can you?" There was a pause. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice was harder. "You came here to exterminate us. You brought weapons to crack our planet. You thought we would beg for mercy, but we will not. If you attack, we trigger the sun. Your fleet dies. Our world might die too, but you will definitely die. So I am giving you the same choice you gave us. Surrender or face annihilation." It was a bluff. It had to be. No species would weaponize their own star. The risk was too great. Even if they could trigger the ejection, they could not control it precisely. It might miss the Imperial fleet entirely. It might sterilize Earth instead. But as Emperor Zarvik looked at his tactical displays, he realized something terrifying. The humans believed their own threat. They had convinced themselves they would rather die than surrender. And belief, even in a bluff, could be as dangerous as truth. He thought about his options. His fleet could still attack. They had planet crackers. They could destroy Earth before the sun weapon activated. But the casualties would be enormous. The human defense grid would take a heavy toll. And if the sun weapon did work, millions of Valorian soldiers would die. For what? To conquer one species? To make an example? Was it worth the cost? For the first time in 8,000 years of Valorian history, an emperor chose to retreat. Zarvik opened a channel to Admiral Chen. His voice was carefully neutral. The Valorian Empire recognizes your strength. We will withdraw to the edge of the system. Your home will be declared a neutral zone. We will not attack. But understand this, human. If you ever expand beyond your borders, if you ever threaten imperial territory, we will return. And next time we will not stop. The response from Admiral Chen was immediate and cold. You came to our home. You threatened our families. You tried to enslave our species. And now you talk about us threatening you? Emperor, you are not watching us. We are watching you. Your empire spans thousands of systems, but every one of them is a potential target now. You cannot garrison them all. You cannot defend them all. And thanks to your own networks, we know exactly where they are. The Emperor felt a chill. During the battles, human hackers had infiltrated Valorian systems. They had copied everything. The humans knew the location of every Valorian world, every military base, every supply depot. The Empire was no longer fighting to conquer humanity. They were fighting to survive what they had created. The first Imperial Armada withdrew. Slowly, maintaining defensive formation, the fleet retreated to the edge of the solar system. Emperor Zarvik watched Earth shrink on his displays, and he knew he had made a terrible mistake. The Empire had not just failed to conquer humanity, they had taught humanity how to fight a galactic war. The Emperor returned to the Valorian capital in disgrace. He had led the finest fleet in the galaxy to Earth and returned with nothing but casualties and humiliation. The War Council demanded explanations. The nobles questioned his judgment. For the first time in his reign, Emperor Zarvik faced the possibility of being overthrown. He acted quickly. He declared the Sol system quarantined. No Imperial vessel was permitted to enter on pain of death. The coordinates were classified at the highest level. Star charts were modified to show the system as empty space, a navigational hazard to be avoided. Officially, humanity did not exist. Any mention of the battles was forbidden. Survivors of the fleets were sworn to secrecy or silenced permanently. The Empire tried to pretend Earth had never happened. But across the galaxy, on conquered worlds, and among subjugated populations, whispers spread. Whispers of a species that made the Valorians retreat. Whispers of humans who turned their own sun into a weapon rather than surrender. Whispers that grew into hope. On a mining colony in the Delrax sector, slaves heard the stories and began to resist their overseers. On the industrial world of Tharsis Prime, workers sabotaged weapons factories. On dozens of worlds, the subject species looked at their Valorian masters and wondered if humans could defy the Empire. Perhaps we can too. Small acts of rebellion grew into larger ones. The Empire responded with force, but the damage was done. The illusion of Valorian invincibility had been shattered. Emperor Zarvik spent his days crushing rebellions instead of conquering new territories. The Empire began to fracture from within, and on Earth, humanity was changing. Admiral Chen stood in the command center looking at star charts that showed the Valorian Empire. Every world was marked. Every military installation was identified. Years of intelligence gathering had given humanity a complete picture of their enemy. She had called this meeting to discuss what came next. The room was filled with Earth's military and political leaders. Everyone knew the Empire would eventually return. The question was what humanity should do while they waited. Some argued for building stronger defenses. Others suggested hiding, spreading humanity across the galaxy so no single attack could destroy them all. Admiral Chen had a different idea. The Empire will come back, she said. Eventually they will overcome their fear and try again. But next time, they will not underestimate us. They will bring weapons we cannot defend against. Fleets so large we cannot stop them. If we wait for them to attack, we will lose. A politician spoke up. Then what do you suggest? We cannot fight the entire empire. We are one system against thousands. The admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We do not fight the entire empire. We make sure the empire is too busy fighting itself to bother with us. We have the locations of every Valorian military base. We know their supply routes. We know which conquered species hate them the most. We can arm those species. We can train them. We can spark rebellions across the galaxy that will keep the empire occupied for decades. The room erupted in argument. Some called it genius. Others called it madness. One general stood and shouted that humanity should not become terrorists, arming insurgents and destabilizing the galaxy. It was not who they were. Admiral Chen waited for silence. When she spoke again, her voice was hard. The empire came to our home to enslave us. They would have killed anyone who resisted. They would have separated families, destroyed our culture, and made humanity into servants. We defeated them, but that does not mean we are safe. We can either wait for them to return stronger, or we can make sure they are too weak to threaten us again. The vote was close, but the admiral's plan was approved. Humanity would go on the offensive. Not with direct military action, but with something more subtle and more devastating. They would export rebellion across the galaxy. Construction began immediately. Shipyards that had built defensive platforms were retooled to build long-range vessels. Ships designed not to protect Earth, but to travel deep into Imperial space undetected. Stealth ships. Intelligence ships. Ships filled with weapons and supplies for resistance movements. Human agents began infiltrating the Empire. They made contact with conquered species. They offered weapons, training, and most importantly, hope. The message was always the same. Humanity defied the Empire and survived. You can too. We will help you. On the frontier worlds, rebellions began. Small at first, just attacks on supply convoys or sabotage of equipment. But they grew. Human advisors taught insurgent tactics. Human weapons gave rebels a fighting chance. And human propaganda showed conquered species that the Empire could bleed. Emperor Zarvik watched his empire crumble one world at a time. He sent fleets to crush the rebellions, but new ones appeared as fast as he could suppress them. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and he knew who was behind it all. The humans. Always the humans. He called his war council one final time. We should have destroyed them when we had the chance, he said. We should have used every weapon at our disposal. We showed mercy, and this is how they repay us. They are tearing apart the Empire from the inside. When Admiral dared to speak, Emperor, perhaps we could negotiate. Offer them a treaty. Promise to leave them alone if they stop arming our enemies. Zarvik laughed bitterly. Negotiate? We came to their world as conquerors. We tried to enslave them. They will never trust us, and why should they? We taught them that the galaxy is full of predators, so they became predators themselves. We created this monster. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched reports of rebellions across the Empire. Each success was celebrated, each failure analyzed for lessons. Humanity had learned that survival meant not just defending their home, but ensuring their enemies were too weak to threaten them. But Chen felt no joy in the chaos they had created. She had nightmares about the consequences of their actions. How many innocent Valorians were dying in the rebellions? How many conquered species would be punished for their resistance? Humanity had chosen to become the chaos in the galaxy. There was no going back. She recorded a message for the archives, something for future generations to understand what had been done and why. We did not choose this war. The Empire came to us. They forced us to fight. And in fighting, we learned that there is no safety in passivity. The strong will always prey on the weak, unless the weak become strong enough to make the cost unacceptable. We are not heroes. We are survivors. And we will do whatever it takes to ensure humanity's survival, even if it means becoming the monsters we once feared. The message was sealed and stored deep in Earth's archives. Perhaps someday, historians would judge humanity's actions. Perhaps they would understand. Perhaps they would condemn. It did not matter. The choice had been made. The galaxy was at war. Not the clean war of fleets and battles, but the messy war of insurgencies and terrorism. The Valorian Empire was tearing itself apart, and humanity, the species that had been dismissed as primitive, had caused it all. Emperor Zarvik died 3 years later, assassinated by his own generals who blamed him for the empire's collapse. His successor tried to make peace with humanity, but Admiral Chen refused every offer. "You should have run," she told the new emperor. "We warned you. Now, live with what you created." The Valorian Empire continued to fracture. Within a decade, it was no longer one unified power, but a collection of warring factions, each fighting for control. The